Hello, everyone, and welcome along to the F1 show. This week's edition of the F1 show. Very, very shortly, I'll be joined by Charlie Tolhurst, and we'll be discussing all of the latest news across the Formula One world. We've had such a busy week with the Turkish Grand Prix as well. It really has been, as I said, such a busy week. We're going to dissect that Turkish Grand Prix when Charlie Tolhurst joins in a few minutes' time. But for now, let's discuss. Well, let's tell you what we got coming up in the show. Coming up in the show, first of all, we have we discuss should Lewis Hamilton have pitted in the Turkish Grand Prix, as Mercedes admit if he hadn't have pitted, he'd have come out in P8. And Max Verstappen takes a 6-point lead in the Drivers' Championship as we head stateside in 2 weeks. Well, in a week and a bit's time then. So it's all up in the air. It's a 6-point lead for Max Verstappen. And we've got 6 races left. It could all change. And after Austin, we could all be saying, well, it's Lewis Hamilton with a 6-point lead. You just never know in these topsy-turvy Formula One World Championships. I think Charlie's got some technical issues. So here he is. Let me see. Is he going to join? Yes, he is. Hello, Charlie. We were just talking about the 6-point lead that Max Verstappen has from that Turkish Grand Prix, but it could all change in Austin.
Yes, if you watched the Turkish Grand Prix, Hamilton had a grid penalty for an ICE change, and yes, finished P5, Max Verstappen second, and yes, I think the championship, Jack, is going to look very close going into Austin.
And of course, Charlie, we haven't had a championship quite like this for years. And I think, Charlie, it's fair to say by every Formula One fan is absolutely loving it.
There will be. It reminds you of the Senna and Prost battle in '89. I think we're going to be in for a pretty similar finish. Will there be more collisions? We just don't know.
Well, there's bound to be, isn't there? We got another sprint race weekend in Brazil coming up. That's been confirmed. And we all know what's happened when we've had sprint races twice this season. Twice the championship protagonists to come together throughout the Grand Prix in Silverstone and in Monza. Going back to Monza, Charlie, those crashes, they could well be critical moments or critical points lost in this World Championship battle because every single point counts.
Yes, Toto Wolff said that if Mercedes took the engine penalty in Brazil, or not in Brazil, in Turkey, because they said a DNF would kill the championship. So it's really important that they are aware of maintaining their power units and also every other part of their car throughout the rest of the season.
And it is now absolutely no mistakes from the front two if they want to win this World Championship.
It is, and where they can't make mistakes now. One mistake will change the championship. You can lose 25 points for a race win. You can lose multiple points if you finish lower down the field.
As Lewis Hamilton found out. Now,
yeah,
the debate is, Charlie, today Mercedes released a statement saying they had to pit Lewis, otherwise he'd have come out in P8. But should Lewis Hamilton have pitted for a new set of intermediate tyres?
It's a difficult one. As Jenson Button said, it's difficult. I can't... to be honest with you, I mean, I'm glad he didn't do a Sebastian Vettel and go on to slicks. I think that was the wrong decision. But yeah, I think Mercedes were borderline.
It was the funniest lap of the Grand Prix.
I watched it. No grip, did Seb. I watched the out lap, and goodness me, he struggled to get any tyre into his test. But with Hamilton, I think, yeah, boys, borderline whether he should have pitted or not. I mean, I wouldn't have known, to be honest.
See, my initial reaction, Charlie, was watching the race live was he should have stayed out because at that point that seemed the logical thing to do. And I think that in the end of the race, Charlie, in hindsight, he probably should have stayed out because Perez and Leclerc and everyone who pitted didn't have great pace on those intermediates either.
No, it didn't. I mean, Leclerc managed to do a long stint on his inters. The only driver that did stay off the whole race was Esteban Ocon, who ended up falling down
by 0.7 seconds.
Yeah, he lost load of tyre. His tyres were definitely degraded at the end. But yeah, I think Hamilton is interesting. I mean, Mercedes obviously thought going in that they knew the tyres were not going to make the end of the Grand Prix. But if it didn't rain and they had the track was dry enough for slicks, it would have been a gamble worth taking.
Should Lewis have tried the slicks? It didn't look ready for slicks, did
No,
it?
it was too slippery. Remember last year in Turkey 2020 when the slicks the track was just too soggy for slicks, to be honest.
It was one of those, though, wasn't it? It was one of those races where it was too wet for a set of slicks, but it was too dry for a brand new set of intermediates.
Yeah.
It was that fine drizzle kind of race, wasn't it? Where it was just... It wasn't raining enough for a full wet track, but it wasn't a full dry track either, because the little sprinkling of drizzle we were getting was keeping the track wet enough to not get the slicks.
Yeah.
And that was where it proved a massive strategical battle for the teams. But let's just mention Valtteri Bottas, Charlie's first race win in over a year, and he described it as his best race victory in Formula One.
Yes, first win for Valtteri Bottas since Russia last year. And would you believe it? I have to say, he deserves that win because he's had such a difficult season. And I'm so glad that will he win any more races before he moves to Alfa Romeo next year? We don't know yet.
Could be his final win in Formula One, couldn't it? Unless he pulls a miracle off at Alfa Romeo and wins in an Alfa Romeo, which is highly unlikely.
I think he'll be fighting for points next year more than anything when he goes to Alfa because they're a midfield team at the moment.
But they looked quick, didn't they, through Turkey? Actually, they had good pace.
Yeah, they did. I was surprised. I mean, yes, they had good pace with Antonio Giovinazzi and Zandvoort. They just ended up running wide and lost loads of positions. So I hope Alfa have a positive end to the year because they've had a difficult year, to be honest.
But the one standout in qualifying, that one standout performance goes to the very, very young Mick Schumacher, who really rather outdrove that Haas to a very good P14, Charlie, and a Q2 finish.
Yes, Mick Schumacher was probably my surprise of the weekend, actually. He done really well. And I'll tell you what, he out-qualified Daniel Ricciardo in the McLaren, who I've had a shocking qualifying. It was awful. The track just rubbered in too quickly for him. And yeah, Mick Schumacher done really well.
Didn't he, by, as you said, the track conditions improving.
Yeah.
And that caught him out. And then he just lost the handful of places at the checkered flag, didn't he? So unfortunate for Daniel, but a standout performance from Mick. And it was unfortunate, Charlie, that he ended up the wrong way round on the first lap. Yeah,
it was the second lap, actually. I think the first lap we'll get on to now, actually, because Gasly and Alonso came together. I have to say, though, it was a bit harsh with that penalty, wasn't it, for Gasly?
Well, I thought it was, Charlie, because I thought Gasly was a bit sandwiched, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I did. It was racing. It was a racing incident, I thought.
I don't think Gasly had particularly anywhere to go. The Alonso Schumacher incident was a penalty because Fernando just drove straight into the side of the Haas, which from a two-time world champion, Charlie, you're thinking a bit better, but we do all make mistakes, so do have to accept that. And even a two-time world champion sometimes makes mistakes. It was Murray Walker's birthday, or what was supposed to be Murray Walker's birthday, the day of the race, Charlie. So it did seem that we wanted to give Murray a very good race. And I think we probably did give him a very entertaining race. And who knows, he might even have been commentating on it in the world above us.
Yeah, Murray Walker's birthday. I would have been 98, would you believe it? Yes, I just have to say, I remember his death just during pre-season testing, and I have to say he was a great asset to motorsport.
And interestingly, Charlie, it was current Formula One commentator for F1 TV, David Croft, and his 300th race commentating on Formula One the same day that it would have been Murray Walker's 98th birthday. Just out of pure coincidence, Charlie. What a fitting way to tribute a great man.
David Croft has done a great job since Sky F1 launched in 2012. So I commend his greatest respects for commentating on Sky Sports during that time.
And so it's been confirmed, Charlie, that we will be having a 22 race season we will be going over to America next week. We will be going over to Mexico, and we will be going to Brazil. We are going to the Losail International Circuit in Qatar before we head off to Saudi Arabia, followed by the season finale at the new Abu Dhabi Yas Marina Circuit. It looks like, Charlie, we're going to see some great tracks and great battles towards the end of the season, and we kick it all off in Austin next week. When MotoGP went there 2 weeks ago, they interestingly complained about the surface of the Circuit of the Americas, saying it was very, very bumpy. Couldn't it potentially cause a problem for the setup of these F1 cars?
Yes, a couple of years ago, Sebastian Vettel went off down, I think just before turn 11. There was a big, he almost done like a wheelie because his floor got damaged. So, yeah, I must admit they're going to have to look at potentially, if not giving the track a quick resurface for the weekend.
Well, I've heard that over the winter, December and January, they'd be partially resurfacing the track between turn 1 and turn 11, where supposedly it is supposed to be the bumpiest part of the track. But even playing it on F1 2021, Charlie, you can see the bumps in the road. And that's on a video game.
Yeah, it's quite a bumpy track, isn't it? I mean, it must be. It's not what you want from a racing circuit. You don't want cars being ejected off curbs and having damage punctures and that. You want racing to be normal, don't you?
And obviously, we saw Sebastian Vettel have a suspension failure there last time we went to Austin as well.
Yes, that exactly. Sebastian Vettel got caught out. I think another driver might have got caught out as well. Yeah, Sebastian Vettel was the notable one in that race that retired.
So it looks like we go to Mexico after. Mexico and Brazil, Charlie, are Red Bull tracks. They should suit Max Verstappen, and he would win there as well, unless we have dramas like we have before. Long straight, tight corners, that's a typical Red Bull circuit.
And he's won there, I think, 3 times. He's won there a few times as well, hasn't he, Max?
Isn't he won there 2 on the bounce now, I think?
Yeah.
And obviously, Losail, Charlie, what do you make of this? Actually, looks from the videos I've seen, it does actually look quite a decent circuit.
I spoke about this at the last week when I was on radio. I remember speaking about this track, and I mentioned about the track, the layout. I must admit, it looks interesting. I think it's going to be interesting to see what this race brings to Qatar. I know they signed a 10-year deal with Formula One, but yes, it's an interesting track. I'd say it's like Mugello a little bit. You know, like the motorbike's got like these curvy corners. It reminds me a little bit of Mugello in that way.
I mean, really, Charlie, you'd expect Mercedes to be flat there throughout the whole weekend because it's a typical Mercedes circuit, isn't it? Fast corners, long straights.
You'd expect that, wouldn't you? Mercedes love these sort of low to medium downforce tracks like we saw in Monza.
Well, the thing is, Charlie, for Red Bull, I think they're kind of, even though they're leading the Drivers' World Championship, I would say they are kind of on the back foot because we've got Austin. That's a Mercedes track. Medium speed corners, medium downforce. You know, then obviously we've got Mexico and Brazil, which we did mention probably would be Red Bull circuits, but you never know. Qatar, that will certainly favour Mercedes. Saudi Arabia will also favour Mercedes. And Abu Dhabi, that usually favours Mercedes as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. Obviously, Abu Dhabi, we've got the new layout. So it is going to be interesting to see how the teams and drivers get the setups for these corresponding circuits. Because I just think as well, Formula One have got a big job on their hands for these last few reigning races. And I think it's all to play for. Whoever, if one of the drivers, Lewis or Max, bins it on the next 2 races, it could really turn the championship around.
Well, they could both bin it, couldn't they? They could both bin it and get away with it.
Yeah.
You just never know. And it takes one mechanical failure, which is exactly, Charlie, what you said, wasn't it? Right at the start of this show. They want it. They'd rather risk taking that penalty because they don't want to get an engine problem in the race and end up having to retire or lose positions and lose points, etc., etc.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, Formula One drivers have to be very careful, especially if they're fighting for a championship. You expect tense battles, and for these two drivers are definitely fierce racers. And I think if one of them, as I said earlier, bins it at a big circuit, like for example, I don't know, Mexico, you've got a few races left to try and really score some points.
And all of these circuits, Charlie, punish you if you go off. Qatar, it's got gravel. Brazil, it's grass and gravel. Mexico, it's grass and gravel. Saudi Arabia, it's a street circuit. So if you go off there, you'll be straight into the barriers. Abu Dhabi, well, you probably could get away with it if you had a light spin. But again, Charlie, they've brought the barriers closer at Abu Dhabi. So if you go off there, you could also be in a bit of bother. And Kota, you might get away with it, but there are a few nasty gravel traps around there as well that you don't want to be getting beached in, as I think Kevin Magnussen found out one year in final practice in 2017.
I think as well, the track that I'm going to be interested to see is Jeddah, because that one's going to be a very fast street circuit. And as it's like, Monaco, very narrow track. If you get it wrong, you're in the barriers. Jeddah is basically a supersonic version of Monaco, very fast corners. It's a very high speed average lap, or high average speed lap, should I say. And yeah, if one of them gets it wrong,
fastest street circuit on the calendar by a margin.
Yeah, if you get it wrong there, I think you'll be in trouble.
But I'm starting to wonder, Charlie, where is it actually possible to overtake on this Jeddah track? Maybe turn one you could try.
Probably turn one. I mean, it looks like that's the widest part of the lap. The final corners are going to be a bold one if someone tries to stick it up there, but it's difficult all the way around it.
And obviously next year we go into the Hard Rock Stadium, Miami Grand Prix. That looks a fast, tight, twisty track as well, Charlie, according to simulations.
Yes, May 8th, I think we're going there. I'm not sure, but it is the 8th of May, I think. It's going to be interesting. Miami, good. It looks interesting. We're in for a big race at Miami next year. And I think this will definitely attract a lot of US fans in Florida.
It will certainly. And around the Miami area. Miami's a very big city. I'm sure most of you know Miami. It's a very, very famous city in America. And it's going to add to the American season, isn't it? As we haven't been there in 2 years, we need to make up for it. Why not make up for it with a Miami Grand Prix?
Yeah, Miami would be the perfect place. NASCAR are very popular over in Miami with a Homestead that hosts the Dixie Vodka 400. So I think it would give them a boost for their motorsport package over there as well.
And next year, new cars. It's all looking very promising to be another great Formula One season.
Speaking, Jack, of the new cars, I think Alex Albon has done like some tests in them, I think. And he did say that they weren't as good to drive as the current cars, I believe, by what he was saying.
But I think, Charlie, they're not as good to drive because they're more challenging to drive.
Yeah, there must be more. The wheels, I think the 18-inch wheels certainly make it very unique in a way.
And the problem is, Charlie, for the teams, they can't really change the downforce. So it's down to the power unit. And the power unit and the driver only. And that is what we've been wanting.
Yeah, closer racing is what their Liberty Media want from this.
And I tell you what, Charlie, if the theory works, then hats off to the FIA.
Yeah, hats off to everyone if they can master these new regulation changes.
And now we're going to turn away from the world of Formula One. We're going to head to more local British-based motorsport. We've obviously got the Bennett's Bike BSB season finale at Brands Hatch this weekend. But next weekend, Charlie, we have the highly anticipated Quick Fit British Touring Car Championship season finale. And I think it's fair to say it is loved by everyone in the UK, the British Touring Cars. And finals day at Brands Hatch always has, it always serves up a treat.
Yes, Jack, I heard you've got tickets for that as well. So good luck for when you go there to watch it.
I must admit, Charlie, I'm keeping my fingers crossed. The weather doesn't look too great at the moment, but
I I hope the weather's good. But yes, I'll go over it basically. So, yes, I forgot the date of it. It's the end towards the end of this month. We're going to have
23rd to 24th of October.
23rd to 24th of October. Thank you, Jack. Yes, the final round of the final 3 races of the season. I have to say, for the British Touring Car Championship, I've been watching it. I know Colin Turkington and Ash Sutton will have a big battle on the hands for the championship. We've got Jake Hill, MB Motorsport. He looked quite good. And I think as well, it's going to be interesting. Obviously, a couple of years ago, Dan Camish was going to win the championship in the final race. And then he crashed out with a brake failure and Colin Turkington won.
That is what, Charlie, is so good about the British touring cars. Because even though Ash Sutton does have a 31-point lead, I believe 20 points for first place? And
yeah, something like that.
It only takes one error, and there will be an error by someone, and the whole championship is turned on its head.
Yeah, and I think the thing is as well, this track is one that favours the BMW of Turkington. He looks really good around that circuit. But don't discount Ash Sutton. He's had success there. If you think about it, he's the reigning champion as well. He won there last year.
I mean, really, what Colin Turkington needs to do is crash Ash Sutton out of a couple of races. Do it a proper Senna way.
Imagine that happens.
I get the feeling, Charlie, that Colin Turkington's not that kind of guy and he's a fair racer.
Yeah, he's fair. I mean, he did make a mistake last time out at Donington. He spun off in race 2. He's definitely feeling pressure, but I think another driver that's going to go for it will be Tom Ingram this weekend, who, by the way, in race 2 of Donington, he was really rapid without any ballast on that on the hind
throughout that one. And another driver in the BTCC who's had a standout season, Jade Edwards.
Yes, Jade Edwards. She had a big crash at the first round in Thruxton, but she's bounced back. She's done quite well, a couple of points finishes, I think, as well. And yeah, I think she'll stay on another year actually for BTC Racing, I think.
And I'm hoping, Charlie, she can round out the season in style with a little bit of a point scoring finish maybe at Brands Hatch.
Yes, I hope she does well. I mean, it's been a difficult... I mean, to be honest with you, it's nice to see that we've got female racers coming in to the sport. It's really nice to see diversity improving.
And obviously, we're big supporters of the Women in Motorsport campaign, which is set up by the FIA. But we will just take you through some of the support action which will be supporting touring cars at Brands Hatch this next weekend. So obviously, you've got the Quick Fit British Touring Car Championship. There's a huge support bill as well of the Ginetta Juniors, the Ginetta GT4 Super Cup, which is the next stars of GT racing. The Mini Challenge JCW, that's always cracking when they get on track. The Porsche Carrera Cup Great Britain, again, always provides door-to-door action. And the F4 British Championship, Charlie Tolhurst, which a lot of the new F1 stars like Lando Norris have come through.
Yeah, and that will be taking place also on that day as well. The British F4 is a great one to watch if you love single-seaters, because it's like, as you said, Jack, young motor racing drivers getting into the world of motorsport. It's amazing. I think it will be something that I think a lot of the fans will enjoy.
Most of the time, Charlie, the guys racing in the F4 British Championship, they don't have a huge amount of money. It is a budget championship, but it's a great championship as well. And it is most of the time, Charlie, the first time that these guys have raced in a single-seater. So they really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, they do. And I think as well, like, it's big. Like, I'm just going to show you right now, guys, just before we wrap this show up in a bit. But I'm just going to show you basically, like, what you can expect. And you can just see on here, like, these are some of the events that will be taking part. And you've got some great drivers, as you mentioned, Jack, with the British F4. This is a basic entry series of people who want to basically be like future F1 stars as well.
Yeah, totally agree. It looks super good. And obviously, yeah, it's just going to be such a great weekend. And it will all be shown live on ITV4 on ITV.com. with the amazing Steve Ryder and David Addison as well. Charlie, the main lead commentator for that weekend. And ITV, they always provide great coverage of the touring cars.
They do as well, and not just this, but also the rest of the series. Like you've got the Ginetta GT4 Super Cup that's going to be on. You've got the juniors. Look out for some great young people for age 14 to 17. Would you believe it? Younger than myself doing GT racing.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is amazing.
I have a kid in my year at school, Charlie, that's racing at that is racing in the Ford Junior Championship, and he's only 15.
Wow, that's amazing.
I must admit, he's had a bit of a treacherous year, to be fair, and he's not had the best of luck, but he's still a fantastic driver as well. And I hope that for him, he would achieve his aim of getting into one of the Formula 3, Formula 2, or Formula 1 one day. But it does take an awful lot, Charlie, to get into the world of motorsport.
It does, and also you've got to think about the dangers motorsport has as well. And you got to, if you watched Romain Grosjean's crash last year in Bahrain, I think you'll know basically that if you are a graduate going into motorsport, you need to understand that sometimes things like that can happen. You could have a crash. You just don't know what the outcome is, and you've got to be prepared to accept that motor racing is dangerous.
Right, we've got a minute and a half before we a minute and a half before we go off air. So we will quickly mention Romain Grosjean, Charlie. What a standout season he's had in his rookie season in IndyCar.
Yes, he has, and he's going to Andretti next year for next season as well.
And I believe he'll be racing on the bowl tracks as well, such as the Indy 500. He'll be racing in the lot next year and could well be a championship contender.
Yes, he could be. He's doing that. He's doing the ovals as well, which will be great. I think Jimmy Johnson is as well. I think what I'm hearing. So yes,
the full package.
This will be amazing for Romain. I really hope he does well. Could he even win the Indy 500 next year? That would be amazing for him. If he
and is Fernando Alonso going to be in the Indy 500 next year? That's been talked about.
Yeah, he could go for the Triple Crown. If he wins it, only 2 drivers would have ever won it. Graham Hill has been the only one so far.
Obviously won the Monaco Grand Prix, Le Mans 24, and Indy 500. So it's been a decent week for motorsport. It's been a decent weekend for motorsport. We haven't got a huge amount on this weekend. We've got MotoGP if you're a MotoGP fan. But next week, we head to Texas. And Charlie, we are at long last going stateside.
We are. I hope the United States will be frying up some great burgers. I thought there'll be lots of fry cooks there. And I'm sure we're going to have a fantastic time in the US next week.
Have you missed it?
I have. I miss Texas. It's a great race, actually. The great atmosphere at Austin, especially that observation tower near turn 18 will be amazing. Great action.
I must admit, Charlie, I've missed the Sunday evening races. I've missed sitting down for one last time before we got to go back to work on Monday, just watching a bit of Formula One on Sunday evening. Nothing beats that, an American race on a Sunday evening.
Yeah, or you can say that's what you want for October.
It is exactly what you want for October. When it's getting dark early, you can snuggle up and you can enjoy the F1 action. We'll be live next week for the F1 show before we are live for the American Grand Prix the following Sunday. You can rewatch our Turkish Grand Prix coverage from Monday if you couldn't join us on Sunday. What a great race it was. So if you did miss it, make sure you go and watch it. But thank you very much, Charlie. We all hope you have a great weekend, and we will see you next week when the F1 show is back next Thursday, 8 p.m, when we finally head stateside. But until then, bye-bye.